Hello, lovely people of the internet. Welcome back to Civics. In this special episode, we're going to be talking about potential amendments that could save American democracy. It's become more and more apparent as the last couple of years have gone on that our democracy is in trouble. But luckily, our Constitution is editable, right? It is known as a living document, which means it can change as time goes on. So, in this episode of Civics, we're going to lay out some possible amendments that could help steer us back in the right direction. So, why do we need these amendments? Well, there's a few different reasons. These are kind of a summary of what they are. Special interest groups and the ultra rich have way more say over our government than the average citizen. That's because money is now voting power, thanks to Citizens United. The Supreme Court is openly partisan, with stolen seats, ties to the insurrection, and perjurers on the bench. We can talk about that a little bit more later. The constitutional rights that were once guaranteed are being stripped away via judicial review. This is, of course, after the overturning of Roe and the potential overturning of other constitutional rights that was talked about in that decision. And then an entrenched political nobility are governing with no real understanding of what the common citizen is facing and their plights. People who are politicians are by no means average Americans, and so they don't understand what a common citizen is going through. They sit on a perch much higher. So with that as our background, let's start talking about different amendments we could pass to right the ship, so to speak. If you have an idea for an amendment you think is a good one that I don't mention, go ahead and comment it on the video. Like to hear what you all think as well. First of all, we need to have limits for Congress people. Congressmen and senators currently serve as long as they continue to win, and this system forces our reps to focus on campaigning and not governing. Representatives should be limited to 2 terms or 2 total terms of service. People who run for office must disclose all of their finances and political affiliations. Not doing so should result in a lifetime ban from office. People are now not doing this. They're trying to dodge letting people know where they're getting their money from and who's supporting them, and that shouldn't be allowed. Reps could not have been or become lobbyists. So people who lobbied for causes or companies shouldn't be allowed to be a representative, and vice versa. And reps' social media should be closely monitored by independent fact checkers, and too many false statements could trigger censorship on the actual floor. I feel like lying to the face of the American people on social media should be something that results in actual punishment in the Congress. So these are potential limits or new rules that would affect Congress people. And I think all of these could potentially be placed in a new amendment. We should also switch our election system to be publicly funded. Unlike most other modern democracies, our elections are privately funded. And so if we switch to a public funding system, it would definitely minimize the amount of money spent, and it would also minimize the influence of the ultra-rich on elections. So citizens would be allotted a certain amount of tax dollars to pledge to a candidate per election. There would be no private election contributions. Corporations are not people and therefore unable to donate. There would be an elimination of super PACs, and then stricter election laws. So, and in that sense, not like voting, but like campaign finance. So if you're not following the rules of how to fund your election campaign, you face jail time and fines, or potentially eliminate your ability to hold office, right? If you're not going to play by the rules, you don't get to hold office anymore. Nowadays, if you violate election laws, you get a fine and you can just keep going. That shouldn't be allowed anymore. So if you violate election laws, you lose your right to hold office. I think if you can't keep that basic level of following the rules, then you have no right to run our country. We also need to make some changes to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court justices should not be allowed to run or to be appointed for life. Back in the beginning of the country, that made sense, but now it just doesn't. So Supreme Court justices should be limited to a one-year term, and justices must meet a minimum level of competency before a hearing. That includes experience as a judge, clerking, and excellent marks from the bar. So the president can't just pick some rando who they like. They do have to make sure that they have the experience level to be submitted. Justices must also be given a hearing within a month of nomination, so we don't have a Merrick Garland situation again. If nominated within a month of an election, the hearing must begin prior to the election starting and must end with a formal vote on nomination within 1 month of the hearing beginning. So this way, a outgoing president like Obama can't have their judge nomination completely ignored by the Senate. And then once a right is declared constitutional via judicial review, that right cannot be rescinded, only by law passed by Congress or an amendment. So we can't take away rights already given through the law. So that's to address the overturning of Roe. This one's a little fishy. I don't know exactly how we could make that work. But once again, judicial review right is not an actual constitutional right the Supreme Court has. It's just something that they say they have. So we could definitely amend the Constitution to further define or outline the how that would work. And then it would be official and they'd have to follow through on it. We also need to institute national recalls and referendum systems. Recalls, right, are when you allow, in states, they recall governors or Supreme Court justices, representatives all the time. And it's because they're not doing the job that people had voted for. And there's really no way to do this on the national scale. We have to rely on our own representatives to do that. And so I feel like having a national recall system would mean that people would be, or politicians would be more reminded of who's in charge, which is us. Senators, representatives, Supreme Court justices could be recalled if a certain number of signatures are gathered in their constituency. So, right, if a senator is, the senator of Wyoming, if 15,000 people get signatures, they could start a recall of that senator. Supreme Court justices, 100,000 people throughout the country, 5,000 for reps because their area is much smaller. Finally, impeachments should be able to be started by the people via special elections. If 2/3 of the states vote yes on an impeachment, then an impeachment trial happens in the Senate. So it's not just on the House anymore to do this. The people can also decide that an impeachment is necessary. Because remember, our government is supposed to serve the people, so the people should have says on this. Same thing with referendums. Special issues should be able to be placed on a national ballot if there's a number of signatures collected 5 months before an election day. And it cannot be budgetary. So they can't nitpick things in the budget, but say something like the abortion ban, right? We could have a national election on that. We could have a vote through this referendum process, or legalizing marijuana, or whatever, right? These issues can be put on a referendum. So things that are supported by a wide variety of the people in the country can be sidestepped over the House and Senate who aren't acting on it. So that's a potential way we could reform the Constitution, make it more democratic in that way. We also should probably codify tax and budget laws into the Constitution. A simplified tax system should be added. The IRS should be fully funded and does your taxes for you, like most modern democracies. That should be written into our Constitution so they cannot change it. We should codify an income tax, and it should be progressive, with the highest tax bracket being those who make $1 million or more, right? It doesn't have to be exactly like this, but, right, it makes sense that the more money you make, the higher percent you should pay on your taxes. There should also be a harmful products tax. Products like nicotine, alcohol, and marijuana will be taxed federally with a percentage determined by Congress. There should be clean energy taxes, so taxes on non-renewable energy sources like gas, coal, and oil. and with a rate determined by Congress. And power companies that invest in clean energy would get their taxes reduced. Plus, all the corporations should have to pay an effective 20% tax rate on their income. Corporations who do not pay their taxes are dissolved and their assets should be seized by the government. This would stop the corporations from avoiding paying taxes, and we could increase our budget to the point where we could even pay off our deficits, which is something that Republicans seem to be interested in. So this is a way we could do that. Plus, it would be codified in the Constitution, and that means it could not get taken away in successive administrations. It would always be there. We should also change the age qualifications for office. Back when the country was first founded, the ages made sense, but nowadays it's becoming more and more of a challenge to get younger people involved, and people who are older are staying involved when they're making decisions that will not actually affect them. So I say that for qualifications, we should lower each one by 5 years. So members of the House could be elected at age 20, senators at 25, and presidents at 30, so that these younger people could be in the House, the Senate, and in the White House making these decisions. Meanwhile, citizens over the age of 70 should no longer be holding office. At that point, mental decline is high, right, with different forms of dementia and Alzheimer's, as well as just them no longer being in the age where they should be the ones making decisions that will affect our future. So citizens over the age of 70 would no longer hold office in these amendments. Of course, we would also need to codify election changes and voting rights into the constitutions. We should make Election Day a national holiday, and it should be in the Constitution, so it cannot be changed. All voting age citizens should be automatically registered to vote, and all voting age citizens should be issued an ID that is presented to vote, so that everybody has an ID, no matter what. Voting could be done through a secure and encrypted website, like they do in some other countries. And we would bolster the FEC and make sure that they're present throughout the entire country for all elections. And of course, we should eliminate the Electoral College. If we're really a democracy, we don't need to have this archaic form of government still in our system. We can just have a popular vote. An important other thing is an official elimination of the filibuster. The number of votes required to pass a law should not be changed from a simple majority. The filibuster is not even an official thing in the Constitution. It's a Senate rule. So an amendment that says that it can no longer be instituted would stop it from happening and make it so that laws can be passed with a simple majority like they're supposed to be. Finally, a new Bill of Rights should be passed. And just like the Bill of Rights from before it, I have several rights here that would be put into the Constitution and to kind of update the Bill of Rights. Okay, because that Bill of Rights, right, was good for when they were passing it, but it's been 200 years. It's time to update it. We should have a right to privacy, right? That right to privacy has already been established in case law, but then it would be officially enacted, so that would guard marriage equality, contraception, and abortion. The Second Amendment clarification would change it so that citizens may bear arms in a militia or may have a personal hunting rifle, and there would be no open carrying of weapons. So we would be clarifying that to kind of bring it in line with what it was originally intended. The Equal Rights Amendment, equal pay no matter gender, sex, or race, and we'd extend that right just beyond gender. And economic rights, so we'd make the social safety net permanent, unemployment minimum wage tied to inflation, mandatory minimum income in the Constitution. Union busting is illegal. Workers would work a certain amount of time. They cannot be forced to work outside of their work hours. That could be added into the Constitution. A right to safe homes, no discrimination in housing loans based on race, gender, etc. Federal governments build safe, affordable apartments for anyone who needs them. That could be put in the Constitution. Freedom of education. All schools are federally funded to a certain level. Segregation is illegal, something that we need desperately. And freedom of competition. Antitrust commission that breaks up large corporations that have too much size, influence, and power over the market. Companies like Google, companies like Facebook, companies like Microsoft. Companies that are so large they have an unfair advantage in the market should be broken up like they were in the 1800s. It's something that needs to happen. Thank you guys for watching this suggestion of different amendments we could pass into the Constitution to help save our democracy. Like I said earlier, if you have any ideas yourself and you'd like to share them, go ahead and leave a comment in the video. We would love to hear what you have to say. And we'll see you next time we talk about civics. Thanks again, and we'll see you later.